Now, we'll talk a fair bit about net zero by 2050 in tonight's show. It's the slogan of the moment, as you know. And as usual, when it comes to global warming, you have to laugh at the ABC. The public broadcaster has been full on with climate alarmism for decades, as you know. They apply no critical thinking to possible policy responses. They actually push all kinds of misinformation about climate impacts, climate science, climate action, exaggerating the science, blaming global warming for everything from droughts and bushfires to floods and storms. What's uncanny is that at the ABC there are near enough to 4,000 people paid for by taxpayers, and they all have the same views on climate issues. They all share the same lack of curiosity. They all back the same political responses, even though this is one of the most complex and multifaceted issues that has ever confronted humanity. It's incredible, isn't it? They're all of like mind. And nowhere is this more obvious than in the very ideological and very predictable Media Watch program. It pretends to be a program to keep the media accountable, but it actually performs the role of ideological gatekeeper, telling ABC staff which views, even which facts, are acceptable and which are not. Paul Barry, who collects more than $200,000 a year from taxpayers to host this weekly 15-minute program, well, this week he promoted a special program. He said this was going to be a special program, but it wasn't special at all. It was just like all his other ones, focusing on his two favourite things: unconstrained climate alarmist propaganda and obsessing over News Corp media. This time, though, he was all excited about the News Corp tabloids running a major series on getting to net zero by 2050. It had all the familiar lines about how we've got to do this quickly and it's going to be easy and there'll be thousands of green jobs, a green jobs bonanza. You know the sort of thing. We've all heard it for years. It's just that it's never happened anywhere, nowhere in the world. Now, anyone, by the way, who's been paying attention could tell you this sort of news coverage, these stories, even some commentary supporting it, has been popping up in News Corp papers for years as well, because unlike the ABC, at News Corp, different editors, journalists and commentators have their own views, different views, and they express them freely. Still, this was a significant series this week, and Barry was pretty excited about sharing it.
Climate of change.
How we can go green and save jobs in a net zero world.
Green and gold.
How Australia could be #1 in the new global economy.
It is amazing stuff, and we welcome it. Pages and pages of tips and explainers about the opportunities for Australia.
And he welcomes it. So he welcomes uncritical reporting of the big claims about green energy and climate action. He welcomes campaigning journalism when the cause aligns with his. The ABC welcomes this campaign from some News Corp tabloids because it echoes campaigns run by the ABC. Except the ABC is not supposed to campaign. It's supposed to be objective. And it brokers no dissent. It has no one contesting the issues, putting inconvenient facts into the public domain. We here at News Corp do, of course. You'll find plenty running with the dewy-eyed net zero lines, and you'll find others like me pointing out how meaningless it is, what the practical problems are, and how damaging and expensive it could be if someone actually backs this stuff up with hard policy decisions. But Barry and the ABC seem to believe there are no logical arguments against drastic policies to deliver dramatic reductions in Australian carbon dioxide emissions.
Well, it was wrong 2 years ago, just as it was 10 years ago. And by the end, News Corp and its columnists were almost alone in refusing to see what was right.
Yes, for the ABC and Paul Barry, it is all black and white. Cutting emissions good, not cutting them bad, no matter the cost, and bizarrely enough, no matter whether it makes any difference or not.
News Corp's commentators have also told us it's pointless taking action because, as Terry McCrann put it in the Herald Sun in 2019...
Nothing the Australian government can do can make the slightest difference to the climate. We are just too small.
But the ABC doesn't care. What's the point of doing this if the environment doesn't benefit? Global emissions are continuing to rise. Why advocate pain for no gain. Barry doesn't challenge these arguments, these facts. He just condemns people for having the audacity to share them. Bring in a carbon tax anyway, is the line from the ABC. Go net zero regardless, just do it. Increase your power costs, undermine your energy security, close factories and industries, all to demonstrate you want to save the planet. And it doesn't matter whether it actually makes any difference or not. And Barry condemns journalists who question this. Media Watch, as I've said before, is anti-journalism in effect. It campaigns against journalism, against your right to know and debate and discuss. Hurting your economy, hurting your people when global emissions continue to rise so that there is absolutely zero environmental benefit, that quite obviously is madness. But it's a madness the ABC chooses to support, and it's happy to barrack for any other media that backs the same shallow and practically ridiculous line. What it hates is anyone daring to think for themselves, break from the groupthink, spark a debate or challenge the zeitgeist.
And the same executive predicted News Corp will not be sacking or muzzling its commentators, saying,
"No, it'll just let them run."
Can you believe it? The ABC there seems to be lamenting the fact that News Corp executives don't tell News Corp journalists and commentators what to think, what to write, what to say. Hasn't their utterly false and ludicrous claim always been that they feared News Corp journalists were told what to think? Now Paul Barry finds it intolerable that different points of view exist at News Corp. The horror.
But what about all those noisy columnists who have done so much to shape News Corp's position in the past? Will they keep shouting the odds? To judge by last week's reaction, their answer is yes. Those columnists get their platform with The Australian and Sky News, which rely less on ads than the tabloids do. And strident opinion helps sell subscriptions. But even if the chorus continues at full volume, and we reckon it will quieten down, the sceptics will be reduced to howling on the sidelines.
You got to love it, don't you? Barry reckons that people like me, Peter Quedlin, Andrew Bolt, Alan Jones, that we're going to change what we think and say because other people like him keep spouting the same inane, superficial slogans. Barry and the ABC are on the same page as big business and big banks, so they think everyone else will fall into line. Stay tuned. And as I've said before, Barry is always welcome to come onto this program and explain how all the independently minded journalists at the ABC all happen to agree on the same lines all the time.